latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 24th. Right now, the main action is with Rick in the Eastern Pacific on day 295 of the year so far. A hurricane threat to the western coast of Mexico, the Pacific coast, whilst the rest of the world is fairly quiet, although rumblings in the western Pacific right now. In the Atlantic though, we're happy to see that there is nothing going on day 145 of hurricane season. No areas of interest, nothing that we can even mark with a yellow oblong or anything to that effect. So it's a lovely time to be in the Atlantic, and who knows how long that might last. Hurricane Rick is approaching the coast of Mexico on day 161 of hurricane season there, the 17th tropical cyclone of the season, tropical storm, named storm, and likely to become a significant hurricane, possibly category 3 before landfall. In the Western Pacific, 98W has been designated as a tropical depression by the JMA already, will probably get named soon. In an area of interest we're marking with a 40% chance entering the South China Sea, headed for Vietnam, could become a tropical storm. In the Indian Ocean, in the North Indian Ocean, nothing active right now, no areas of interest to speak of, although in the Southern Indian Ocean there may be something that might be forming next week, which we'll be keeping our eyes on very closely. Well, by far the top story is Hurricane Rick, which is depicted here with winds of 85 miles per hour, pressure 978, moving north-northwest at 5 miles per hour. It's at 15.3 north, 102.1 west. Hurricane warning for Tecpan de Galeana to Punta San Telmo. And as we look towards the forecast, you can see how it is expected to intensify to Category 3 status from the latest National Hurricane Center advisory, making landfall as a Category 2 on Monday, and then moving inland and weakening substantially, and hopefully being gone completely by Tuesday. So here's a look at the GFS model over the next 16 days. Obviously it's the early part of the model run that's most interesting, that's most likely to happen. This is the North Atlantic looking ahead. What you can see is a lot of windiness in the North Atlantic zone and a big frontal system there off the US East Coast that develops and could deliver hurricane force winds to actually the northeast part of the United States, which is interesting. That's not going to be a tropical system though, and that will move out over the central Atlantic later on. Even into the long range, the GFS isn't saying outright that there's going to be a tropical system in the main development region or into the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, which is what you would expect at this time of year. That thing at the end, borderline maybe, and there is that little system there near the Azores that might gather some subtropical or tropical characteristics. That's late in the model run though, so there's nothing in stone that there's going to be late season activity in the Atlantic, at least in the next 2 weeks, although some model ensembles are saying so. Well, the big story of course right now is Rick, as we've been seeing, and you can see it here, the model run, the GFS showing how it blows up a little bit more there, reaching Category 2 status at least, and then making landfall there in Mexico. Looking at the actual location of that, that is well west of Acapulco, that's just east of Lázaro Cárdenas, and then it would move inland and weaken very quickly after it strikes land. We're still looking at potentially 250 to 300 millimeters of rain from that storm, although when you look at it in context, it is actually fairly small by hurricane standards, fairly small, so impacts will be geographically slightly more limiting. Looking towards the Central Pacific, as you can see, pretty dead all the way through the forecast period. The Western Pacific, those two invests that we're looking at right now, the one on the western side there, 99W, looks like it could become a brief tropical storm as it hits Vietnam, so that's something to watch for. And 98, which is TD, already likely to be named pretty soon. There it is, becoming a typhoon and possibly a Category 2 or even Category 3 as it moves up towards higher latitudes. Will still have a lot of energy as it turns post-tropical. Now in the Indian Ocean, Well, actually, before we do that, let's just look at the Western Pacific a little bit more later on in the model run. There's nothing happening there. Towards the Indian Ocean then, we can see, well, actually, this little thing down here is rather interesting. Potentially two competing centers, but the GFS has one of them winning out, and that is a bona fide tropical cyclone in the southern Indian Ocean, and that is on the 29th of October, that particular frame. And it moves along towards the southwest, very large actually when you look at it, and keeps going for some time, almost makes it completely to Madagascar. I mean, that is somewhat long range, but the formation stage is around here. Look, this is around the 27th, 28th, so that's day 3 and 4. That could absolutely happen. And to be honest, probably should have been included in tonight's tropical weather bulletin percentages. I'm sure it will appear on future versions. Looking towards the Australian region and the southern Pacific, things will light up there soon, but it doesn't look like that's going to be yet. A few extratropical systems blowing around there. And finally, moving all the way over to the European region, the Mediterranean Sea, rumblings about a Medicane. Well, there is a little thing that tries to get itself sorted, but in my view it seems as though it's just too messy a situation around there, and nothing's going to come of it at all. There's been rumbling about that for some time, to be fair, and I think we're towards the end of that period of speculation. So that's it for that model at the moment. We'll check back in with that again on a later stream most likely. And this is the latest satellite picture of the North Atlantic right now, and you can see just general shower activity and cloudiness out at sea there. Lots of dry air moving through the United States and over the southern Caribbean. You can obviously see Rick there on the very edge of that image, and you'll see it on the right hand side now as we enter the Eastern Pacific, and you can see how it's been developing. It's certainly been expanding in terms of its influence, but the central core has always been fairly small, and some have been questioning whether it's been intensifying in the last few hours, although convection has been bubbling a little bit more in those later frames. Western Pacific looks like this right now. You can see those two systems. More vividly you can see 98W, which is starting to get itself together. Not seeing that much rotation just yet, but I'm sure it will come fairly soon, and we'll probably start to see that become a tropical cyclone and get going as it moves towards the north. Towards the west there, a bit of a mess near Palawan is that system that could become the tropical storm over the South China Sea. Here's the Indian Ocean, where you can see it there as well, but over in the Indian Ocean itself, just general thunderstorm tropical activity around the equator, really, more than anywhere else. And here's another look at the Western Pacific right now, showing all of the cloud tops there. Pretty high cloud tops from 99W in particular near Palawan, which is currently shooting up above minus 80 degrees Celsius. One or two little pockets in 98W doing that as well. Here's the sea surface temperatures for Rick right now. They're very warm indeed, all the way up to landfall, 28 degrees rather comfortably, 30 degrees in some areas. The Atlantic, for potential late season activity, it's still looking warm and toasty there. The Caribbean Sea pushing 30 degrees still, and the Atlantic Ocean way out there towards the 30 degree latitude. We're still keeping hold of 26 degrees quite comfortably, all the way to around 60 to 30 degrees west. And this is the North Indian Ocean, very warm waters along the coast of India. You can't rule out more storms forming there towards the end of the year. That potential Southern Indian Ocean system has decent waters of 28 degrees plus, and the Western Pacific there showing temperatures 28 degrees plus for both of those invests as well, and that extends right up to the Ogasawara Island chain, where it drops down quite steeply there briefly to 26. And then further as you get up towards the coast of Japan, where of course temperatures are starting to recede. And here's the sea surface temperature anomalies. The La Nina effect still clearly obviously visible there, and very warm pockets in the northern subtropical, the extratropical Pacific Ocean, and in the Atlantic along the coast of the United States and towards Europe. On this day, on October 24th, 2018, we were tracking Hurricane Willa's landfall, but also Typhoon U2, which was a Category 5 and was about to pummel the islands of Saipan and Tinian in the Mariana Island chain. I remember it well, this particular time, when these two storms were around. Of course, U2 would then go towards the Philippines, and that was the last time I was ill until last week when it happened again. So I had a decent spell, and here we are once again. Hopefully another 3 years of wellness, fingers crossed. Well, in the Atlantic, the next name on the list is the last one, or it ought to be. It's Wanda, and then we'll have to go on to the auxiliary naming list for the first time. In the Eastern Pacific, the next name is Sandra, and in the Central Pacific, we've now been waiting over 2 years for Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Malu, followed by Nyato, and in the North Indian Ocean, the next name is Jawad. Looking towards the Southern Hemisphere, once it flashes up, anytime now, we have Paddy in the Australian region, the next name, followed by Ruby, the Southwest Indian Ocean. So the first name there will be Anna, followed by Batsirai, and in the South Pacific, the next name is Cody. We'll have another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.